Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk, and thank you for your continued support of a platform that celebrates industry professionals all around the world, because you are bold, brave, you dare greatly, you collaborate, you educate, you innovate, you're solving problems each and every day. And we thank you here on this podcast. We celebrate you because we're just fans of what you do. As you, a fan just walked in. One, you're welcome. And we're broadcasting from Hexagon Live here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm telling you, you need to put this on your bucket list. It was a spectacular kickoff last night, and they're doing wonderful, wonderful things at Hexagon. They're just so committed to innovation. It's really pretty cool. In the hot seat, you might have heard him before. His name is Angel Torres, and he's with Visual K. Let's get cracking.
Hey,
there it is, man. And if that doesn't work out, he's got just a bright future in podcasting. It's always good, man. I was so excited when I saw my calendar and I said,
We are back. We are back.
Yeah,
a little fatter, unlike you.
Unlike me, man.
You're in shape,
my body, yeah. My body's a temple now. Sort of. If you come to Vegas, it's not a temple.
It's not a temple anymore. It's been desecrated.
It's a something to abuse. So sadly, but the food's been good.
Not enough food.
Not enough food. That's it. But you're having a good conference?
We are, actually. This is our second Hexagon Live. The first one happened
you were last year.
Yeah, last year we had our first in-person after COVID. So this is our second. This time around, we're really, really busy. We haven't had the time to go to each and every talk or each and every session because we've been busy talking to a lot of people from a lot of different places.
Is that good?
It is actually, because here's the thing, right? We come from the EAM acquisition from Infor.
Yeah.
So we're still learning about Hexagon. I mean, there's so much to know.
The company in themselves. It's just
not only the company, right? Because, for example, last night I saw for the first time the new CEO.
Yes.
Right? I've known that the transition happened, but I actually haven't seen him. And much less in person. So we're meeting new people, but then Hexagon has such a diverse portfolio of solutions, right? It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. That's absolutely a great way of putting it, because I hope there's not a test, because I'm going to
fail
it miserably.
I'm going to flunk. So there's the overwhelming amount of products in the portfolio, and then for us as EAM partners, now we're trying to navigate and find those things that are complementary.
See, how do you begin that journey? How do you because it's such a massive portfolio, and you were primarily in the EAM solution, and it's like, okay, I know where we're at.
Right.
But now with the Hexagon the acquisition of Infor into Hexagon, now you have other capabilities that could sort of bolt in and connect to, and
right. So it's one of those situations when you think you know all the answers, and they change all the questions, right? But in order for you to find your way around, you should start with the familiar. So, for example, when it comes to power plants, which we do day and night.
Mad skills
right?
over there in Visual K.
So there are solutions that talk to permit to work, security, safety, right? Which we know. There are solutions that sit on top of a DCS, the control system for the plants, and look at alarms. And it's
But
world.
When you say their solutions, that's Hexagon.
That's Hexagon solutions.
Wow.
So you have your EAM, and now you have all these different pieces. And we're starting from a familiar place,
right?
And then try to find pieces that we can fit into the mix.
Have you had that moment in time where it was like, you can do that?
Right.
We were just having a conversation. Do you have that capability?
And you have that, yeah. Yeah, there's an app for that.
No way.
Yeah, there's an app for that.
Isn't there a learning curve?
Of course there is. And
how, outside of the learning curve, where do you start? Like, you can't just do the big bang and say, hey, check that out, check that out, check that out.
No. I mean, you start small, and obviously you look for people who have been there before.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess that, our first takes on some of these technologies will depend on either other partners or Hexagon itself to come and help us out. And that's how we learned.
What's on the sort of horizon for Visual K? You mentioned briefly airports, facilities. Mm-hmm. Give us sort of a flavor of what's taking place and why that's important.
Well, facilities is one of those things that people take for granted, right? An airport, it's there and you fly through.
But it's like it's the macro version of just like, this is a facility. Whatever, we're in a conference, this is, and then,
But then each one is special. Yeah. For various reasons, right? First, their purpose, right? This is a conference facility, a meeting facility, a concert facility. So it has to be flexible. Assets need to be in shape so that if you're throwing a concert, the lights will come on, right? If you need to accommodate more people, these panels, they actually move. Right, so there are all these moving pieces in a facility, and people typically don't realize that if you want to do a certain something, the assets need to be in a position where they can actually do what they're supposed to do. And sometimes, there's neglect. Maybe they don't move these panels every month or so. So when they do need to move them, guess what? They're stuck.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where we see EAM coming in.
See, this is interesting because even though I've had a number of these conversations with EAM users, right, it never really dawned on me like this could be a real rich environment for really improving the assets or insights into your business, because you go to a conference center, you just brought up a really interesting, these partitions, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you're right, they just don't work. Or how do you create a work order? And what if it doesn't,
Right.
And there's lights
and things that are supposed to work,
exactly,
right?
The whole time.
So, and then, for example, if you look at airports, and we're looking at airports in the Caribbean, where most of these islands, their economy is, dependent upon tourism, big time, right? So what we've seen is that they're coming back to pre-COVID, or even they're surpassing their pre-COVID capacity.
Yeah.
But they're also trying to attract new airlines, new flights, right? And then the question is, these airports, they were designed to handle 1 million passengers a year. And most of them are operating below capacity. But the Ministry of Tourism is actively pursuing new routes, new airlines to bring people into their islands, right? But they never do it in consultation with the engineers at the facility to do an asset assessment to see whether or not they're ready to take in a new flight, right? So at Visual K, I think we are always striving to make sure the fundamentals are there before we try to do anything crazy, super cutting edge, because people tend to forget, right?
Well, if there's low-hanging fruit, do you need that cutting-edge solution, or do you can make significant improvements by just doing the blocking and tackling, and then you can then venture in, but you've got to get that blocking and tackling down.
I'm not good at sports analogies, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
No, but
the basics.
Right, the basics. So typically what happens is, even if you want to do the cutting edge stuff, you need to have a solid foundation.
Yeah.
In order for you to get there.
There's no way you're going to do the cutting edge if you don't have that down.
Right. So what we've seen and what I would say, preach is, let's get the basics right so that you can start building on top of that.
In your conversations with these airports in the Caribbean, I would imagine this is sort of a unique conversation. I mean, they would do maintenance, of course they would.
Yeah, of course.
And then of course, but it was so the gap exists that they just need more of a plan, or is it just because you're bringing in more?
You're bringing in more people. You're bringing in more volume. But here's the thing: and this cuts across many industries. There's typically a disconnect between the overall corporate strategy, execution of that strategy, and maintenance and engineering. They're like two separate worlds, right? And it's one of those things that when it works, no one remembers.
Nobody knows.
When it doesn't, everybody's thinking about you and your family.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at, for example, the mission statements across the board, and you look at all these airports, they have really common threads. Reliability, quality, right? So the conversation that we've been having is, what does that mean from a maintenance perspective, right? So how do you measure quality at an airport? One way of doing so is number of passengers processed by the hour, right? So if a flight lands and they go through customs, for example, and then they have issues with the electrical outlets at each one of the officers' stations, that means that instead of having 10 stations, now they have 5, which means that customers are going to have to wait longer, which obviously has an impact, not only on the airline, not only on the customers, but also on the perception of quality of that airport.
Is there a safety component?
There's always a safety component. If you look at, let's go through TSA, for example, right? If there is a problem with the equipment, obviously safety could be compromised, right? Also in terms of, flight operation safety. Typically you have your operations people going out there doing their rounds because they have to comply with FAA or whomever authority they report to. But whatever they find to be out of whack, it needs to make its way back to maintenance, right? So typically you have all these people doing rounds and checks all over the airport, but there's a disconnect, and sometimes it doesn't make it back to the people that need to fix it.
Yeah, and you just keep on talking about the airport, the infrastructure, the facilities associated with the airport. I mean, there's airports everywhere.
There are.
Everywhere.
There are. And many more to come. All shapes and sizes. Because to you and me, we go through these large hubs most of the times, but you have all these regional airports, you have all these private airports, right? So it's especially in the U.S., it's, a very big industry that just keeps on growing.
So we take an airport, a target, when I say target, not in a
Don't
negative
go there.
sense.
Don't go there. Nobody's listening from the NSA.
Nobody is. I can. Back off, Scott. Crab out of that. But you really come in with the perspective that, okay, let's get the basics down, achieve that, create some. How long would that take typically in that trying to get that basic down, and then venturing and painting that picture? That picture that is so necessary.
Right. So when it comes to facilities and facilities in general, especially with EAM, we do have templates, which makes the process a little bit simpler, right? Specifically for airports, the runway or runways are a big deal, right? And within EAM...
Just bringing up stuff, and it's like, runways are pretty important. Thank you very much.
Right, they're important. But then inside of EAM, you have linear assets, right? Yeah. So now you're able to treat the whole runway and segment it in such a way that it's manageable.
What technology that you're saying, okay, hey, this is cool, this Hexagon relationship is pretty cool, they got some mad solutions out there. Are there any really cool solutions that you're looking into for the airport?
Right now, we are looking at what's called the reality capture.
Reality capture.
Right. So that's the way for you, because typically if you're planning and building a facility, you would have, blueprints and you will have BIM models and all of that good stuff. But the truth is that most facilities we walk in are 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, right? So trying to even find the original set of blueprints, it's a challenge, right? Now with digital reality capture, now you can go in to a 20, 30-year-old building and basically map out everything, all the assets. I think kind of like the last frontier there is for something like artificial intelligence to come in and be able to look at an image and say, that's a chair, that's a chair, that's a table. Right now, the state of the art is, for the most part, we still have to go into the reality that has been captured in a digital format and tell it, that thing right there, that's a chair. That thing right there, that's a table. But Hexagon and the development teams, they're really hard at work to making it so that the system can recognize those kind of things.
And I hate to dive deep into it, but it's a fascinating solution. It's like you take this room and you want to capture it. You want to capture it in a digital way. What's the tool?
Under the Leica brand, they have all kinds of contraptions, right, that will do the job for you, from handheld things that you can put on a drone, one of the dogs that they have there, or they put it on a tripod, right, and it captures everything. But the one thing that we've been looking at, and this is like really looking ahead, is that we don't do these reality captures once, but rather consistently, almost every day, on the hour, every hour, so that now you should be able to tell something changed. That chair is there no longer. Now it's at the other side of the table.
So in the case of a runway, if you're doing something similar to that, and you've got that digital representation of that runway, and you're taking sort of the digital snapshots over and over and over again, you'll see the changes that are taking place.
Right. And take it to another industry. We have customers in oil and gas, and you're familiar with that industry, right? Mm-hmm. So how you close and operate your valves, it's a big deal, right? And there's like management of change to deal with. Now we're diverting the flow to this other pipe, right? So imagine if you were doing reality capture basically constantly, and you notice that the valve position moved to a closed position. So now you can say, the flow is going this other way, and no one told me about it.
Now that's a safety, that's a big time safety component.
Right.
Big time.
Our customers, they do a really good job at management of change, which is the formal process that will look after something like that, just to make sure that something doesn't blow up. But imagine if we could take it to the next level where you don't really need to go through a management of change, because you're capturing in real time what's going on.
I've got the T for time, telling me time. It's not because of you, because you're just absolutely super engaging.
Oh my God, I'm into it. I'm in the zone.
All right, I'm sorry, Angel. How do people get a hold of you?
Go to visualk.com or follow us in LinkedIn.
You're awesome, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Thank you very much for joining. We are broadcasting from Hexagon Live here in Las Vegas. It is an event that you need to attend in a big doggone way. Thank you once again for joining. We're going to wrap it up. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this Industrial Talk, and thank you for your continued support. Angel Torres is his name. Visual K is the company. We were on site, broadcasting on site. Hexagon Live. There's a lot happening at Hexagon. A lot happening. with the partners, and then being able to take what they do know, what they're just absolutely skilled at, and then begin to pull in some more innovation for the ultimate goal of making companies, businesses, facilities successful, resilient, safe, big time safe. For me personally, when I was there, I'm excited about what is taking place at Hexagon and the partners, and seeing how that technology is definitely going to impact in a positive way. All right, you need to put Hexagon Live on your calendar because you get to meet people like Angel Torres. Be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Angel, change the world. We're going to have more from this event shortly.